What is going on, YouTube? Welcome back to Fireside Rangers. I'm your host, Eric Wilson. Today, joined by my co-host, Anthony Rivardo. Earlier today, or I guess this was technically last night, there were some reports going around that Trevor Zegras, center on the Anaheim Ducks, currently has the New York Rangers as his preferred destination for a long time. And, we saw some other reports saying that the Rangers were possibly interested in making the trade happen. So it kind of seems like both parties are down to make this a thing. Personally, I'll just put it out there right away. I think me and Anthony are both in agreement that we do not want to see Trevor Zegras be a New York Ranger. So this might be a little bit of a Chris Drury, please don't do this type of episode, but we'll get right on into it. So before we do, make sure you guys like, subscribe, ring that bell so you get most notification. Leave your thoughts on a potential Zegras trade down in the comment section below. And lastly, be sure to follow us on all of our social media platforms at Fireside Rangers. But before we get into it, Anthony, how are you doing today? And I guess what is your initial reaction to all the reports we've been seeing?
I mean, there's a lot of rumors swirling around, and it's getting really interesting right now with the NHL offseason really heating up. The draft, I think it's in, 2 days? Or is it tomorrow? It's very soon.
It's on Friday, yeah.
Friday. So Friday night, got the draft, and then soon after that, all hell kind of rains down. Mayhem ensues with free agency. There's going to be trades. There's going to be signings, and the Rangers are at the center of nearly every big rumor, whether they're trading a player away, acquiring a player via trade, or targeting someone in free agency. The Rangers are busy. Chris Drury is busy. And I think that this Trevor Zegras rumor is interesting because we've seen a couple different iterations of this rumor. And what I mean by that is we've seen Zegras is reportedly interested in joining the Rangers. That's preferred landing spot. That's rumor number one. Rumor number two is that 8 teams have inquired about him, the Rangers being one of them, and they've expressed significant interest. And then rumor number 3 is that Zegras might be their draft day trade target. So they might go after him through the draft. And then if you kind of link that to rumor number 4 of Kaapo Kakko being the player that they're trying to trade during the draft to move up or acquire somebody else, then you kind of start piecing things together. And it sounds like maybe Kakko for Zegras could be the move. But then there was rumor number 5 that came out of nowhere, and it was Alexis Lafreniere could be moved in a play to try and bring in Trevor Zegras, which would absolutely be the most infuriating thing of the offseason for me. So there's just rumors everywhere is the point that I'm making. I just came up with 5 different ones that out of nowhere keep popping up overnight. There's a whole lot going on. It's kind of hard to sift through and figure out what's true, what's false. But right now, what we do know is that Trevor Zegras going to the New York Rangers seems to be a realistic possibility. How it happens, who they trade to acquire him, that's the question. And we'll obviously discuss how much we think they should give up to get him, if anything at all. But it is notable that Zegras has mutual interest with the Rangers in coming and playing on Broadway.
If the Rangers trade Alexis Lafreniere for Trevor Zegras, that might be the end of this channel. I think I would just get so angry that I just delete everything and we just never talk about the Rangers again. I know yesterday's episode that we recorded, there was a Ducks fan that tuned in, and he commented saying he'd be curious about, if it happened, giving us Zegras in exchange for Trouba and Kakko, which, honestly doesn't sound that terrible. But I don't know. I don't want Zegras on this team. We talk about the needs that the Rangers have, and he does not meet any of them. The Rangers get called soft all the time. Zegras is soft. We have players who don't bring any physicality or grit to the team, that don't play defense, and a guy like Zegras isn't going to fix that. He's 6 feet tall, 185 pounds. He's on the smaller side. He's a -40 throughout his career. Sure, he's been a 60-point scorer twice in the 4 seasons he's played in. But other than that, his first season, he only had 15 points. This last season, he only played in 30 games and had another 15 points because of his injury. He's a small guy who's he's a flashy player. I don't know. I've seen people say that Zegras is the most overrated player in the NHL. And I'm kind of in agreement, because I know every once in a while he'll scoop up the puck and score a Michigan lacrosse goal and everyone goes crazy about it. But when he's not doing that, I don't really know what he's doing. It's like all talk, no game, pretty much. The most undeserving NHL cover athlete, I will say, as well. He scored 1 goal and then EA slapped him on the cover. But I don't know. He doesn't match anything that the Rangers need. And he's a center. He's not going to replace Zibanejad. He's not going to replace Trocheck. He's going to have to play on the third line, which then what does that mean? Hedl is going to go to the wing, and it's going to be Cooley, Zegras, Hedl. Like, I don't see that line working well together at all. So I don't know. Yeah, we need like center depth for like the fourth line, maybe, if you're going to keep Brodzinski up there or something. But just based on his characteristics as a player and just what the Rangers need, I don't know why we're interested in him. So I don't like, jury, if you're watching this, explain. Like, I don't, what are we looking for?
I would have to assume that they're looking for young talent, kind of like we've been debating. You, Colin, and I have been kind of debating about should the Rangers be going after stars who can win now in their 30s, or should they be going after younger players that can be around for the long term? I would assume that Zegras is looked at as a player who can be here now and help them win, and then to help them win. That might be the line of thinking here because he is still very young, only been in the NHL for 4 years. He's 23 years old. You know, he can be a long-term building block. But at the same time, where does he fit in this lineup is the big question. How much of an alteration do the Rangers have to make to their lineup in order to fit Trevor Zegras in? Because you look at, like you said, moving Hedl, moving Kakko, you're not going to move either of the centers on the first two lines. If Trocheck gets put down into the bottom six, what are we doing? That doesn't make any sense. If you put him on the third line, keep him on the second line. So it doesn't really make sense. I get that the Rangers might be interested in bringing in younger talents, which, you know, I've been a proponent of. I don't think that all of the guys that the Rangers target should be 34, 38-year-olds, right? I think it's ridiculous that Rangers fans are so obsessed with the idea of bringing in Patrick Kane one more time, but whatever, I'll digress off of that. Bringing in these young players, 23, who are already ready-made stars and have more potential to scratch, I think makes sense. But for Zegras in particular, his playing style and his position, it doesn't line up with the needs of what the Rangers have right now. They need a physical first-line right winger. We can all agree on that. And then I would also prioritize finding a defenseman over a guy like Trevor Zegras, who plays basically third-line center for you and shifts your whole lineup around. So in terms of priorities, Zegras wouldn't be high up on the list for me. And it seems like he is for the Rangers, which is why I'm a little bit confused. And again, maybe it's all smoke. These are just rumors. These are not necessarily factual reports that we're getting. It's not like Chris Drury has said, "Oh my God, I want to trade for Trevor Zegras." He didn't say that to anybody. We don't know that. But if you're trying to read between the lines here on all of the smoke that we've seen and all of the rumors that are taking place, the Zegras one is the one that doesn't make a ton of sense to me. Like the Kane one, as ridiculous as I kind of think it is, it does make sense. The Gensel interest makes sense. Some of the interest in the free agent defenseman, it makes sense. But again, because of the needs of this Rangers lineup and the personnel that they currently have in their lines, acquiring Zegras requires such a shift in the way that they play hockey, and it's not necessarily a shift for the better, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. And like, I'm happy you brought up the age, because when I look at this potential trade, the fact that he's that young and has already had 260-point seasons, like that is nice. You know, he would be the same exact age that Mika Zibanejad was when the Rangers traded for him way back when. So, you know, just like a young center with very high upside, very high chance to break out and become a solid player in the NHL. But just, you know, now that I've brought up Zibanejad, Zegras kind of reminds me of Mika, you know, where he can score very well. Consistency is a little bit of an issue, and he's just a little soft, you know. So like maybe that's kind of like the game plan that Jury's thinking, where just a couple years from now, he's the next Mika on the first line.
Right. That's kind of what I was going to bring up next. And what I was going to that's what I started thinking of was this could make sense as a Zibanejad replacement, but Zibanejad's not going anywhere this offseason. He's got the full new no move clause. Him waiving that seems impossible. The Rangers actually wanting to move on from Mika Zibanejad, I don't think that's the case. I don't think they're interested in doing that. So if they were moving on from Zibanejad, we knew he was on his way out the door. He already had 1 foot out. Then it's like, okay, yeah, bring in Trevor Zegras because he can fill that role now and potentially be the next Zibanejad who makes an impact long term. But with Zibanejad still here, then you're burying a really quality talent down on the third line. How long is Trevor Zegras going to last on the Rangers if he's buried down in the bottom six and not getting the ice time that he wants or not making the impact that he foresees for himself? Then you can create some dysfunction with Zegras, and you can create dysfunction all around the team, again, because you're moving Heedle onto the wing. Now you've got Cooley playing with a different player. Like, you'll have to reshape the entire lineup, and it just doesn't make sense because the Rangers just right now do not have an opening, a hole on the roster that Zegras perfectly fills in, unless they move on from Zibanejad, which isn't going to happen. So I see that, like what you're mentioning, as him being the long-term successor for Mika Zibanejad. But right now, in this cup window, looking for the long-term successor of Mika Zibanejad is not my top priority.
Yeah, and it's not even like Zegras is like signed for a long time. I believe his contract is this upcoming season and then one more. So, like you wouldn't have to worry about him being a 1-year rental if he chooses to leave after that. But, it's not like you're trading for this guy with like a kind of cheap long-term contract. The Rangers would have to worry about signing him on top of dealing with the Lafreniere contract next year and the Igor one, and everyone else is going to be a free agent too. But so like, I don't know, just I don't like the idea of it. And I'm like, this just seems like such a typical Rangers move though, where we're just going to go out. We're like, ooh, name that people are familiar with. Like, let's just get them and not worry about what it actually takes to win a Stanley Cup because we need big name players on our roster because we're the New York Rangers. Like, I don't like it. I don't want to see it happen, but I fear that it will. But I guess the last thing we should talk about is just opinions aside on whether we want it to happen or not. Let's just say if it is going to happen, what are we willing to give up? Honestly, the guy that commented Trouba and Kako, I kind of like that. Like Trouba 50% retained and just full Kako for Trevor Zegras. I think Zegras is making like just over $5.5 million or just under $5.5 million, somewhere in that range. So, clearing $4 million of Trouba's plus another $2 million of Kakos, you're actually saving money on that deal. I don't know if the Ducks would do it. I feel like Anaheim is one of those younger teams still looking to rebuild, getting a veteran leader in Trouba and a young guy like Kako. Good work. Or honestly, I saw a lot of people comment on yesterday's video saying about how unless the Rangers trade up in the draft, this 30 overall pick doesn't really mean much because it's so late in the rounds. Maybe just Kako in the 30th overall pick for Zegras, and then we just worry about Trouba elsewhere. I don't know. Like, not a lot, though. Like, I'm not giving up Brennan Hoffman for him. I'm not giving up Gabe Perreault, obviously. Lafreniere, I will do. I can't see. We're on the internet, so I can't say certain things. But I'd be very angry if Alexi Lafreniere is traded for Trevor Zegras. But I'm cool with Kako. I'm cool with Trouba. Even this 30th overall pick, if that's involved too, I don't care. But that's about it. So I don't know.
Yeah, Trouba Kako makes sense. And one thing that I will throw out there, I guess, to kind of play devil's advocate, if you go on Elite Prospects, and again, this is from 4 years ago when the prospect report was written on Trevor Zegras, it did list him as an elite two-way forward that can play both wing and center. He's played center his first 4 seasons of his career with the Anaheim Ducks. Maybe they move him out to the wing, and maybe then it makes a little bit more sense. Then you have him play on the third line wing or even on the first line wing if that's the route that the Rangers want to go. I guess then it makes more sense to bring in Zegras, but again, that feels like another gamble that you'd be taking, like another risk that you would be taking while building this roster. So I don't know. I don't necessarily see the path towards bringing in Trevor Zegras. It doesn't make a ton of sense to me. I think I'd be excited if it happened just because of the idea of getting a 23-year-old with a lot of talent. I mean, back-to-back 60-point seasons before he got injured this past year. Yeah, I could see him being a massive impact player for the Rangers now and then, which is kind of what I've been looking for. So it might even be a surprise to some listeners that I'm not all in on this, but it's really just because I'm not super confident that he's going to step in and be an excellent winger for us. And that's my top priority if I'm Chris Drury, is bringing in a winger. And I also think that the price tag for Trevor Zegras is going to be extraordinary. And I don't know if I want to see the Rangers sacrifice a ton of assets to bring him in. But if the price is right and if he can maybe compete on the wing, all right, then I'm open to it. And I might get really excited about it if it happens. But it's kind of a wait and see with all of these potential moves that we're weighing here as the Rangers go through the rumor mill. What are they giving up? That's really what it's going to come down to for Zegras trade, for a trade to bring in pretty much any of these superstars. If they're signing anybody, how much are they paying? It is all going to come down to what they're sacrificing in order to make these moves.
Yeah, dude, I don't know. Even if he plays on the wing, I think I'm still a hard pass. Because then what? Is he the guy that's going to play with Kreider and Zibanejad? The line that keeps failing to succeed with smaller, soft players? Like, another small, soft player is going to be the solution. Like, that just doesn't make sense to me. Like, if you're going to pick up a contract that's like nearly $6 million, I'd rather just send away Kako, clear another 2, and sign Gensel for 8. Like, at that point. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm against it.
I think I'm against the Gensel acquisition. A lot of Rangers fans really like that. I'm against that one. I think $8 million to bring him in, it's kind of just redundant to what the Rangers have done in the past, and it doesn't really change things up. But this kind of just reminds me, like, it's a shame that Capo Caco isn't a better player because his playing style is exactly what the Rangers need on the first line. Like, he is really physical, and he does provide that. Like, if he could just be better. Like, if he could take that step this year and like develop into a better player and play on the first line and make an impact, that's the ideal scenario for the Rangers. But they don't have the time to wait and see with Capo Caco. They have to bring some talent in, and I think that's what's going to ultimately make them move on from Caco probably in the next 48 hours. So we'll probably have a breaking news episode to do, which should be a whole lot of fun if the Rangers do trade Capo Caco, which again seems like a foregone conclusion that they're going to. But yeah, wait and see moment here now with the Rangers. If they bring in Zegras, I might be really happy about it. Just depends on what they give up and what their plan is for him. But it is definitely going to be a hectic next few days in the NHL.
Yeah, I won't be happy if it happens. I've made that very clear, but I'll just reiterate it one last time. Us trading for Zegras is the same thing as if we just signed Patrick Kane right now. Like, at that point, I'd rather just get Kane because he's going to be cheaper and he's a proven playoff performer. Like, but I know there is the whole age aspect of it all, but I don't know. I don't see any of these moves working. I'm just waiting for the day that Drury wakes up and realizes that a bunch of Patrick Kane-esque players aren't going to win us a Stanley Cup. We just need like 2 or 3 more Vincent Trocheck type of players. Unfortunately, there's just not many of them out there on the market right now, but I don't know. I'd be very upset if this happens, unless somehow, some way we just get Zegras for like a 7th round pick and Anaheim just retains like as much salary as they can, or just like we just give up future considerations. Been a fan of this league for 12 years and I still don't even know what that means. But I don't know. I'm not going to be happy about it, but we'll wait and see what happens over the next couple days. But that about wraps up today's episode of Fireside Rangers. So if you guys did enjoy, please make sure that you like, subscribe, ring that bell so you don't miss notification. I'm sure the comment section on this video will be very civil and we'll all be in agreement. So let us know down below. And lastly, be sure to follow us on all of our social media platforms at Fireside Rangers. Have a good one, and let's go Rangers.